Alrighty, welcome to this episode of Lectures with Liddington. We've just finished up talking about photosynthesis, which is a really important process that autotrophs use in order to harness energy. That is not possible in all organisms. But we are now going to start talking about cellular respiration. And this is super important process because all living things can do this. Even if an organism is capable of photosynthesizing, it is also capable of undergoing cellular respiration. And in this case, what we're doing is a little bit different in that we are converting chemical energy from glucose into a usable chemical energy form that's called ATP. So let's talk about what that looks like. So super important that we know this equation. You need to know this equation. Just like I said with photosynthesis, that you need to know this equation, you need to know this equation for cellular respiration as well. The one helpful component here is look at our products and our reactants. You're going to see something very familiar. Over here, my reactants, and over here are my products. Well, we're just going to go to here. Products. Notice my reactants for cellular respiration are my products of photosynthesis. And my products of cellular respiration were the reactants for photosynthesis. So what comes out of cellular respiration goes back into photosynthesis. And what goes into photosynthesis comes out, and vice versa. So you're going to see this cycling between the two processes. So here is my glucose. Glucose goes into cellular respiration. That is a form of chemical energy. But it's not really useful for cells. In order to release energy, what do I have to do? That's right, I have to break a bond. Well, in the structure of glucose, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to break bonds on glucose. It's a very stable structure. So we need to be able to take that glucose and convert it into a much more usable form of chemical energy, which ultimately, in this case, is ATP. So I take my glucose, I add in oxygen, I go through some processes, and out pump my products. Out comes carbon dioxide and water. So this is what you're breathing out, right? You're breathing out carbon dioxide. Plants are going to take it in. They're going to release oxygen, which you're going to breathe in. Your cells are going to undergo cellular respiration, and you're going to put out carbon dioxide. And through cellular respiration, you're going to get a whole bunch of ATP. So this process of cellular respiration, where does it happen? Here's my animal cell here, and here is my mitochondria. The mitochondria is the location in eukaryotes of cellular respiration. Just like in chloroplasts, how we had two membranes, we have two membranes in our mitochondria. So here is our outer membrane, and if we're looking over here, it's tough to see. Here's our outer membrane. Inside, see this part that sort of looks like squiggles, right? That squiggly part over here, if we're looking at our actual cell image, this is the inner membrane. inside of that inner membrane here, and here, if we're looking at our actual one, that goo on the inside is called the matrix, the mitochondrial matrix. And then the little squiggles, they look like little fingers. They're called cristae. So this right here is a crista. So we've got cristae right there. And then over here are some examples of cristae, right? See these little squigglies? Those are my cristae. Each section of that is going to have a slightly different job, but ultimately that whole organelle is going to work together in order to undergo cellular respiration. So there are 3 different stages of cellular respiration. For right now, we're just gonna say what they are and the order that they're in. Next episode, you guys are gonna hear a little bit about, we're gonna dive in a little bit more to what's actually happening at each. But for right now, these are the stages in order. So the first thing we have to do is glycolysis. Remember lysis, right? Glyco, we have glucose. We're gonna cut glucose. Then where it goes from here is going to depend on a few things. But if there's oxygen present, we'll go from glycolysis into the Krebs cycle, named after a guy, the last name of Krebs, or Krebs, excuse me. So then we go into Krebs cycle. Then from Krebs cycle, we go into the electron transport chain, or ETC is another abbreviation that we use for it because, well, save a little time. You don't want to write electron transport chain every single time. So like I mentioned, glycolysis, we cut glucose. Sometimes there's oxygen present and sometimes there's not. So when there's not oxygen present, there is a backup plan. And this is where we get anaerobic respiration. So glycolysis, there are 2 different directions that we can go from here. We can go into aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration. Aerobic, oxygen. It means oxygen's there. So aerobic respiration, oxygen is present. Whereas anaerobic means no oxygen. So there's no oxygen present in anaerobic respiration. So in aerobic respiration, this is that standard process. So we start with glycolysis, and then we move into the Krebs cycle. The thing with aerobic respiration is it's ideal. It's the most efficient process. We pump out anywhere from 32 to 38 ATP molecules in total. That's awesome. That's a lot of energy, a lot of molecules where we can harness the energy stored in that bond with those phosphates. With anaerobic respiration, this is sort of like the backup plan. It's not ideal because we're only going to get 2 ATPs out of it. So it's some energy. It's not a lot, but it's better than nothing, right? And in this case, what happens is I undergo glycolysis, so I cut my glucose, and then instead I go into fermentation. So there are 2 different types of fermentation. There's lactic acid fermentation, and then there's alcohol fermentation. So alcohol fermentation is exactly what it sounds like. This is how alcohol is made. If mom or dad drink beer at home, this is the process of how it's made. So there are organisms that alcohol fermentation is the process by which they get their ATP. But another more common situation that we see as humans. We don't undergo alcohol fermentation. We undergo lactic acid fermentation. So this happens when you put your cells into an anaerobic environment. So if you expire all the oxygen, your cells will say, uh-oh, we need a backup plan. We can't move from glycolysis into the Krebs cycle. We got to do something else. So what they will do is they will go into lactic acid fermentation. And acid, you think burning? Well, yeah, it is an acid. So what happens is in your muscles, lactic acid will start to build up. This is why you get the burn the next day. So if you go work out really hard, a little too hard at the gym one day, and the next day, oh man, my arms are killing me, it's burning. There's a reason, and it's because you used up all the oxygen for your cellular respiration. So your cells went into fermentation instead. They said, uh-oh, we need to make some energy, but we can't do it aerobically. So your muscles started to undergo lactic acid fermentation, and then you got that buildup of lactic acid, which is why you get a burn if you work out too hard. So that's it for now. We're going to take a little pause and try some practice.